Okay, we're now here to start the nervous system. And in fact, the rest of the semester, we're going to be studying the nervous system. Why that is because it's much more complicated than many of the other systems that we've covered this semester. Just by mass, it's only about 3% of your total body weight, but it's by far the most complex system in the body. So we're going to divide it up into many chapters, and the first one being the nervous tissue chapter, chapter 12. In this chapter, we're going to talk mostly about the cells that make up the nervous system. But we have to first remind ourselves exactly what our nervous system is doing. It works together with the endocrine system to control internal conditions. So it's vital to maintenance of homeostasis. The two systems do it quite differently. The endocrine system does it using hormones that circulate in the bloodstream, whereas the nervous system obviously uses neurons that can produce electrical signals throughout the body. But together, they're going to maintain equilibrium by monitoring the inside and outside of the body and making adjustments. So as we begin, this figure talks just briefly about some of the major components and how the nervous system is organized. First, we take the nervous system and divide it into the central nervous system versus the peripheral nervous system. And the central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. So those two organs we're going to be looking at a little later in the semester. Obviously, your brain is housed inside the cranial cavity. Obviously, your brain is very complex, so we do divide it into different parts, such as the brain stem, which is attached to the spinal cord, the cerebellum, the cerebrum, and there's an area inside the brain called the diencephalon. Obviously, the brain is there to process a lot of incoming information, make decisions on that information, and then send out signals to effector organs. The spinal cord is a way to get to the brain, so a lot of peripheral nerves are going to attach to the spinal cord in order to send information up or bring information down from the brain. So your spinal cord does a lot of up and down signal transmission, ascending up to the brain or descending down from the brain. Spinal cord is also involved in some of our reflexes that are very quick, involuntary responses. Looking at the peripheral nervous system, there's a number of ways to divide it up. One way is functionally, when we'll do that on the next slide. But anatomically, you can see you've got nerves that are going to either attach to the brain, so those would be called cranial nerves, and there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. There's 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and those are the nerves attaching all along the spinal cord, bringing information in or transmitting information out. You'll notice here they're pointing to some structures called ganglia. If you look very close to the spinal cord, there's an area of this nerve that looks swollen, if you will, or wider than the rest of the nerve. That's called a peripheral ganglia. And we'll talk more about what those are as we progress. They mention a specific nervous system dedicated to your intestines. It's called the enteric nervous system. That's a little more important for an AMP2 discussion when we get to the digestive system. And then obviously there's sensory structures. This picture only shows the ones in your skin, but you've got sensory structures throughout the inside of the body as well. Let's take a look at how the nervous system is organized, more of a functional way. You'll notice this diagram looks very complicated, but we have to make sure we understand the different colors and what they mean and the arrows going in or out of the CNS. So you'll notice all the blue are sensory components. And how we know it's sensory is the arrows are going to the CNS. Sensory neurons deliver information into the CNS, either directly to the brain or into the spinal cord and up to the brain. The red represents the motor component. Motor neurons bring information via nerve impulses out of the CNS towards an effector organ. And the effector organs are shown in the green boxes. So we've then divided up the entire nervous system into three systems. The somatic nervous system, or SNS, the autonomic nervous system, or ANS, and then the enteric nervous system, or ENS. The enteric nervous system is much more important to us when we get to the digestive system. So we're going to kind of hold off on that system for now. You should be familiar with the word enteric. Enteric refers to the intestines. So whenever you see that enteric word, you know you're dealing with some sort of relationship to the intestines. But let's compare the somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. First, look at the sensory component. Somatic nervous system deals with somatic senses. Somatic refers to the body. So we're thinking about the surface of the body. So all of those cutaneous senses in your skin. It also involves senses in muscle and joints, but those all are considered somatic senses. It also includes your special senses, so vision, hearing and equilibrium, taste, and smell. So all of that are your somatic senses that go into the CNS for processing. The autonomic nervous system deals more with internal or visceral senses. So those would be senses in, say, your blood vessels. So we detect blood pressure and blood chemistry. We're also monitoring a lot of other internal conditions. That information goes into the CNS for processing. If we look at the motor division, we have somatic motor neurons, which are voluntary control of skeletal muscle. We already know that from the muscular system, that skeletal muscles are controlled by somatic motor neurons. These are voluntary neurons, so we can consciously control our muscle activity. If you look at the autonomic nervous system, its motor division is much more complicated. It's an involuntary system. It is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic subdivisions. Both of these subdivisions control organs that have smooth muscle, like blood vessels, your respiratory tract, your urinary tract, reproductive tract, GI tract. So there is a connection over here with the GI. Your heart is regulated by the autonomic nervous system, and then many of our glands. The difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic is how they affect these organs. Sympathetic is often used during fight or flight or stress responses. So the sympathetic division will do things that help you respond to stress, whether increasing heart rate, increasing blood pressure, boosting your blood sugar. Those are all fight or flight or emergency responses. Parasympathetic, we often refer to it as rest and digest. These are more of your resting activities. So our blood sugar goes down, so we might store glucose instead of release glucose into the blood. Our heart rate goes down, our blood pressure goes down. Those are all parasympathetic responses. But we're going to talk a lot more about the autonomic nervous system because it has its own chapter in your book where we look into a lot of these responses of our autonomic nervous system. So that's going to set the stage in order for us to then proceed into the different cells that make up the nervous system.